Hey everyone! With Endfield beta test soon to arrive, I wanted to make this short video to briefly talk about what I'm going to be looking for. As I'm sure many of you have seen, I did get into the beta test, so there's a lot I really do hope to see changed as I go through the entire test. For those that didn't know, I was a technical tester when they opened up the game about a year ago, and that's where all of this old footage you're probably seeing right now is coming from. As much as I would like to talk about all the things that I do plan to keep track of, that is a much longer video, and I'd rather just stream it all and see if they've changed things and maybe talk about that later. That said, if you do want to see the feedback that I had given the developers at the time, I will have pretty much a document in the description below that you can see for all the feedback and all the changes. Maybe you're going to watch somebody else and you want to keep track of that yourself. That's up to you. That said, it'll be in the description below. Now, while Endfield promises to be a factory management style game, one would probably think I'm going to be focusing heavily on the factory side of things, right? Well, I do plan to rigorously test that particular side of Endfield, but there's also a lot of other aspects of the game that I do want to check out as well. But there is one portion that I feel really needs to be tested and just seen how they've changed it, and that is combat. To be completely honest, combat was the weakest part of Endfield during the technical test. There was a lot of potential for the system, but I felt like they had just started working on it and it was just too underdeveloped and definitely needed some considerable time before I could really say it was ready to go. There were some promising ideas with the concept of the elements, the control skills, but there were also a lot of disappointments like the elemental orbs and just kind of how dealing and taking damage was very rough to deal with. While it's not too strange, the combat felt like it was a lot of skill spam back then, and of course, they also had other glaring issues, like you couldn't use your normal skill if your ult was ready, but thankfully that's been fixed from what I've seen. And yeah, so I really just want to focus very heavily on seeing how combat is going to change throughout this entire beta test, and just seeing how they've modified it, how they've introduced new concepts or removed old ones, just kind of figuring out what they're trying to do with the combat side of this game. Now, outside of that though, you're probably wondering what I thought about the main point of the game, which was the factory building concepts. To which I can simply just say, the technical test did a fantastic job at making the factory side of this game very enjoyable to do. I mean, what you are seeing on screen is my third version of the factory. After basically just redesigning, rebuilding, scrapping thing, I spent hours building this. And it was so much fun to continue doing, and just seeing how it would produce and playing on everything. I busted out spreadsheets even. That just tells you about how much fun I was having with the factory building portion. But there are still some minor issues, and I would really like to see how they expand upon a lot of the concepts that they have, like verticality, maybe even bringing some PvE elements into the base design that, you know, if they had gone with that idea. I know they were thinking about that, but I'm really curious to see how they're going to expand upon what they have already. I would say the most concerning thing is that while it was fun to build the factories, if you've got a strong factory design, or just the way you've built it is pretty solid, that factory would basically carry you through the entirety of the game, both in not just, you know, doing whatever you needed to do task-wise, but also just character progression as a whole. It kind of felt like it was so powerful and such a requirement that if you're not too keen to factory-style games, that might be a real concern. I mean, granted, for me, I might actually consider doing like tips and guide videos, because I do like factory style games, and I think this would be something I could do pretty decently. Plus, it's also mathematics, so I know math could be a little bit rough, but trust me, this kind of stuff's kind of fun to do. I mean, like I said, I had spreadsheets and everything. But progression was a major concern for me when it came to how the factory would impact that. And that's kind of something that I really do want to see. If they've modified it, if they made it to where it doesn't have a huge impact for players that aren't as keen to factory stuff, and it doesn't make it to where you are just on top of a mountain enjoying the view of everything. Well, I mean, the view of the factories is great, but But that's kind of where my biggest concern is, because like there were rifts, there were the domains. If you play MiHoYo games, I don't know what ZZZ and Star Rail call it, but Genshin called it domains at the time. They had those. I probably rarely ever used them because I didn't need to. It was just, I had all the stuff I needed at the base, and that was something I didn't have to worry about. So that's something I'm very concerned about when it comes to the factory, is how it affects, you know, the late game progression. Is it going to be easy to amass resources, or is it going to be one of those things where they've changed it and it's not as fast as it was in technical? That's really the bigger thing. Outside of that, exploration is definitely something I'm kind of curious about, how they're handling it. But the most important thing for me at this point is going to be, did they do anything about the chore of having to power up each zone to utilize the mining nodes that you would need there, or just about anything that you would ever need there, and as a whole? Because powering up the zone, I didn't mind doing it. I didn't find it that hard, but it was one of those things where I could tell that a lot of people weren't enjoying it too much because it kind of felt like a chore. You had to basically go from A to B, but the distance between A to B wasn't exactly a straight line, so sometimes you'd be zigzagging a little bit, dodging and weaving through things, trying to find that one spot where you can place everything, and also not get in the way of your path. Like, there's a lot of things I could definitely see being a problem there, and that's kind of something that I think is what I really want to look at. I will definitely say, though, zip lines, those were fun. They were amazing to use. My gosh, did they make traversal of every map so nice. Anyway, despite all the things that I've just mentioned in this like 7 or 8 minute video, I do really look forward to streaming this beta test and seeing how they've changed everything. And hopefully, they've done a pretty solid job with that. Now, I will also mention that the stream is already up on my channel, so if you are curious what time I'll be streaming, it should be just simply check my channel and you'll be able to see it on the live tab. I will be planning to stream it very heavily this weekend, seeing how things are going, so feel free to stop by, say hello, and I hope to see you guys all around. And welcome to Talos too, I guess. Have a good one, everybody.